Two of the most asked questions in the past several days and months have been, where do we go from here? And how do we make real substantive change to curb gun violence all across the country? Those questions are the core mission of 97%. This is an organization of gun owners and non-gun owners who are working together toward a bipartisan solution to reduce gun deaths. For more on that, we welcome the executive director of 97%, Mathew Littman. First of all, thanks for joining us in this conversation.
Thank you, Annika.
And when we talk about gun violence in America, let's start with this. Is the majority of gun owners, do they feel that there is a problem?
Well, I'm glad you asked that question. Yes. So 84% of gun owners, for example, favor universal background checks, right? Which is an extremely high number, 97%. Sometimes we say 90% of all Americans, but 97% is what we have found favor background checks. But 84% of gun owners and 80% of members of the NRA favor background checks. So yes, very much so. But gun owners have not often been included in the conversation. So that's where we come into this issue.
Well, let's talk about that conversation. And in your experience, where does it start? What do gun owners and non-gun owners have in common? How can they start working together on this?
Well, it's a great question. So what they have in common is what you see, what everybody sees, which is way too much death, right? So we have about 45,000 deaths with a gun in 2020. I'm sure that number is going to be higher this year. And I say number, but it's people. I mean, people are being killed all the time, and people recognize the fact that this is way out of control in this country. And gun owners want to have a seat at the table as well, because there are certain things when we talk about, for example, pieces of legislation, certain things that gun owners feel that they're not included in when it comes to this conversation. But absolutely 100% red flag laws, which many states in the country have. Gun owners, about 2/3 of gun owners favor that as well. And that's something that appeals to both Democrats and Republicans, as we're seeing now, as it makes its way through Congress.
But we are not there on a federal level. And I guess what I'm wondering is, we've heard a lot from the NRA and other gun rights groups and gun lobbyists, but the individual gun owners who you're talking about, the majority of people who own guns, how do they get a seat at the table? What would they say? I mean, you said that they generally support universal background checks and also limits on assault rifles.
Well, I would say that that's not, when it comes to gun owners, they do not favor a ban on assault rifles. And when we talk about Republicans, only 1/3 of Republicans favor a ban on assault weapons. So it is over, I think about 62% of Americans overall favor a ban on assault weapons, but Republicans, for example, do not. And that's why when the House is marking up this legislation on Thursday in the Judiciary Committee, there is no assault weapons legislation. There are several bills that they're working on. Assault weapons are not even one of them, because it does not, I may be shocking to some people in your audience, but does not have enough popular support. Other bills do. Gun storage, there's something called Ethan's Law, which is a gun storage bill. That has popular bipartisan support. We mentioned red flag laws, background checks. There are some things that do have that support. And then there are some things that surprisingly do not have that support that are not going to happen right now.
So if for those things like red flag laws that you're talking about and background checks, what is the holdup? If there is the overwhelming support, is their view being hijacked by a highly financed gun lobby that might have an interest in making profits on this, and then they are thereby funding congressional campaigns, and so we get nowhere?
So I want to make sure that I'm really clear on this point, Annika, because you ask a common question, which is basically, is the NRA controlling the debate? And the answer to an extent is, the attitude of the NRA controls some of the debate. Absolutely true. Less so if you got rid of the NRA's money today that they were giving to candidates. And the NRA, by the way, has a lot of issues right now. We would still be having this conversation, because there are other groups that are even to the right of the NRA that are being set up that have already raised a ton of money. So the NRA by itself is a convenient boogeyman, but is not the answer. In other words, limiting those campaign contributions isn't the answer. It's the attitude of some of these people that are maybe representative of 15% of gun owners, but they're the loudest voices and they get heard the most, and they vote on this issue singularly, which is one of the reasons that they're so effective. So we need more people. We need gun owners to come to the table as well. But the gun owners feel that they're talked down to by the media, which I think often they are, and they don't trust members of Congress and legislators. which they have reason not to. So we're trying to bring them to the table. We see this as the missing link. And by the way, Annika, we see that as the missing link because we researched this for a very long period of time to find out the questions you're asking, which is if something is 97%, universal background checks, Annika, are more popular than the new Top Gun movie. They have 97%, that is 96%. How could we not have universal background checks in this country? And the answer that we found is that gun owners aren't included enough in this debate.
Okay, but so here you are, and you are included in this conversation. So what will it take? Because you do sound optimistic that something can happen because it is more popular than the new Top Gun movie.
Annika, I'm not going to say I'm optimistic. I would say I'm realistic. So, even when the House passes these bills this week, the Senate won't take up most of them, right? That's just a fact. But the Senate is working on red flag law legislation, which Congresswoman Lucy McBath from Georgia has done in the House, modeling hers. And she's an incredible leader, modeling hers after Senator Lindsey Graham's legislation that he had written in the Senate. So I'm somewhat optimistic that something can get done on red flag laws. And does it matter? It really does. Annika, reality, 45,000 deaths from guns a year. We're not getting down to zero. But we've got to get that down. We've got to change some of the attitudes in this country. There are still going to be mass shootings, I'm sorry to say, when you have 400 million guns in the country and 340 million people. But any lives that we could save makes this endeavor very worthwhile, and that's what we're trying to do.
Mathew Littman, Executive Director of 97%. Thank you for joining us.